Hello, everyone, and welcome to Respawning Fire, the kick-ass, irreverent gaming podcast from Affable Idiots. I'm one of your hosts, Alexander Kazina, aka Cozy Bear, and this is our Backlog Accomplishment with Respawn and Friends review, also known as our BARF review of Hollow Knight. Chad, I'm not going to be honest. No, wait, that's not. That's
You're going to be a liar.
I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be totally honest with you, totally frank, as they say, a frankfurter, like a hot dog. Thisthingrules.com. We have a new episode about hot dogs out right now. Whenever I share to Twitter or Blue Sky or what have you that we have a new BARF review coming up or we're playing a game as part of BARF, I always feel a little guilty because I feel like people not in the know would assume that if it's a BARF review, it's like us being like, yeah, let's go and review some trashy, shitty games. And so this entire past few months, I'm like, yeah, we're doing a BARF review of Hollow Knight. I've been like, oh no, is there some person out there that's going to see these posts and think, oh, are we shitting on Hollow Knight? Are we playing this so that we can mock it and make fun of it?
Yeah, I like to try to have some kind of context in there. So, like either a thumbnail that has the backlog accomplishment with Respawn and Friends written out, or I'll write out the thing and put in parentheses BARF or something like that. Just because sometimes I do. Especially when we were tagging like developers, like, hey, we're, tagging Team Cherry. We're reviewing Team Cherry's Hollow Knight for our BARF game. And they're like, oh shit, they're going to see this and not have the context and understand. They're going to think we're shitting on their game. And maybe we might. Who knows?
Maybe we might. Who knows? I mean, train's out of the station at this point. We can't put the genie back in the bottle. Joining me this evening, you've already heard him spoke quite a bit, Chad Michael Innes.
That's me. Also, we haven't said it yet, but backlog accomplishment with Respawn and Friends means we all played the game and heavy spoilers. And in fact, our stream opened up on maybe the last image of the most spoilerific thing in the whole game. So,
yeah, spoilers abound. And joining me as well this evening is the man of the hour, Adam Gumbert.
Hello. Has everyone popped their Team Cherry yet?
Oh, that's not your joke.
That's
not your joke. Matt Keaton just said that in the chat.
I was doing it for Matt Keaton. I was pontificating for that.
I was going to say, this is not Rafter Dark. We're not recording that this evening, so we're going to have to keep things a little in check, Adam. I hope you can do that.
The name of the studio is Team Cherry, so that's the joke.
Before we get into the swing of things, remember that you can catch regular episodes of the Respawning Fire podcast live on twitch.tv/AffableIdiots every Monday evening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as on YouTube and podcast services the following Wednesday. And speaking of which, next week's episode on Monday, July 7th, will be Respawning Fire's 400th episode.
Whoa.
Lots of exciting things planned for that one. A couple of segments for myself. I'm sure the other boys will be bringing cool stuff to it too. Definitely look forward to that one. All right, guys. At the beginning of the month, we ask you to go to patreon.com/respawningfire to vote on a game for us to play throughout the following month. And at the beginning of May, 2 months ago, I asked you, our dear fans, to vote on 4 acclaimed Metroidvania games for us to play. The Metroidvanias in question were Blasphemous, Hollow Knight, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and Shadow Complex Remastered. And all of you unanimously, not a single dissenting vote, voted on Hollow Knight, which I appreciated as it was my preferred title to win the vote when I put up this poll. Now, original plan was that we were going to finish and review Hollow Knight by the end of May. However, because of a bunch of scheduling issues that came up around the time, combined with the fact that Hollow Knight is way longer of a game than I think any of us were anticipating it to be, we decided to punt Hollow Knight's review down the road, do a double-double, and switch our playthrough of Hollow Knight across both May and June, which is why we're reviewing it today on June 30th. Now, we've said the words Hollow Knight a whole lot, but what exactly is Hollow Knight? You might
It's a knight without any guts.
Let me tell you a little bit about Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight was developed by Team Cherry, an independent development studio from Adelaide, South Australia. Per their website, our mission is to build crazy and exciting worlds for you to explore and conquer. I'd say a pretty good description of the game we just played. Hollow Knight, of course, puts you in the role of the Knight, who is a small, diminutive bug who sets out to explore and save Hollownest, a once majestic kingdom that has fallen into decay. The concept for Hollow Knight was originally conceived in a 2013 game jam. The game's developers created a very simple game that basically tasked the Knight character with eating off a bunch of bugs to stave off starvation. Do either of you want to take a guess at what this game jam game was called?
I watched like a whole documentary on it. Hungry Night. That's what it was.
There we go. It was called Hungry Night. Hungry Night was not exactly acclaimed at the time, but it served as the inspiration for a more sprawling underground adventure with the same character at its center. Games that served as an inspiration for this game, besides, of course, the Metroidvanias, include games like Xanadu, Zelda 2, Adventure of Link, which we played on BARF many years ago, and Mega Man X. The game's art was created by directly scanning developer Ari Gibson's hand-drawn sketches directly into the game engine, which is why this game looks so gosh darn beautiful. Its development was partially funded via a Kickstarter campaign that was seeking just $3,500 and ended up raising over $5,700. I said 3,500. I meant 35,000. Ended up raising over 57,000. From 2,158 backers by the end of 2014. It originally released for PC in February of 2017, followed by Mac and Linux in April of 2017. Man, 2017, an insane year. And like people weren't even talking about Hollow Knight to the same extent they were talking about like some of the other big hitters from that year, which is insane. Eventually came to the Nintendo Switch in June of 2018 and the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in September of 2018. During this stretch of time, it also received 4 expansions. We had the Hidden Dreams expansion in August of 2017, the Grim Troop expansion in October of 2017, Lifeblood in April of 2018, and Godmaster in August of 2018, which added 2 whole new endings to the game in addition to its initial 3. Content from all 3 of these expansions were free and were incorporated into the console versions free of charge. Team Cherry originally planned on producing an expansion to Hollow Knight titled Hollow Knight Silksong, but decided to eventually expand it into a full sequel, which they originally announced back in 2019. Weirdly, this actually puts it as having a very similar development timeline to that of Metroid Prime 4, but we will talk more about Silksong and its, imminent release a little bit later. I have talked a lot, so I want to turn the floor to the two of you guys before we get into our thoughts overall on Hollow Knight. I just want to know kind of where the two of you are coming at with regards to your experience and exposure to Hollow Knight. Was it a game that you guys had previously played before? What exactly is your relationship with sort of the Metroidvania genre as a whole? And how did that kind of color your expectations coming into this title? Chad, how about you?
Woo! So Hollow Knight is maybe one of the first games that this podcast kind of freaked out about. The year that it released was what, you just said it, 2018 on Switch?
It was, 2017 on PC, came to consoles 2018.
So 2018 it released on Switch, and Holden played it that year, and it was literally his game of the year that year. He voted it game of the year. And then the next year, I played it, and jokingly named it my game of the year for 2019, even though I did really, really enjoyed it. But I was like, is this going to be the RAF game of the year for 2 years in a row? So I played it back in 2019 on Nintendo Switch. And then I played it again just now for BARF on PlayStation 5 and mopped up some trophies. So, I played it long ago, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. Like my play of both of these different times was very, very different, and I got a lot of different things out of each playthrough, which was really exciting to see. So, I played both of these. I had recently also kind of discovered how much I loved Metroidvanias in general. I think we had played Symphony of the Night previously before this game came out. And
right.
I realized, oh my god, I fucking love these things. I'd played Guacamelee and really, really loved that series. And so I was my proverbial Metroidvania coming out, realizing how much I actually do love Metroidvanias. And it just happened to hit at the right time for me way back then.
Cool. I should mention, by the way, I only joined the podcast as a full-time regular in 2022. So a lot of I appeared every now and then on the podcast prior to 2022, but a lot of this stuff is stuff that I'm not super familiar with. So thank you for the history lesson, Chad. Adam, what about you?
You're going to have to give me that question again because you gave like a 4-part question and I don't remember. That was 10 minutes ago.
Hollow Knight. What's your relationship with it? Did you play it prior to this BARF month or technically 2 months? What's your relationship with just Metroidvania games as a whole?
Okay, let's go one by one.
Yes.
Adam cannot remember this
What's
right
your
now.
social
Adam literally
number?
had his heat stroke 24 hours ago.
What's your address?
So for me, obviously I knew about Hollow Knight because it's a popular game and, you pay attention to that stuff. Fun story here. I got my copy of Hollow Knight because for those of you who like IGN, Podcasts Unlocked, hosted by Ryan McCaffrey, every year they would have somebody make a trophy for like their quiz thing at the end of the year. And I made one of those trophies. And Ryan McCaffrey was like, thanks for doing that and shipping it out. Can I get you anything? And I was like, if you got a code for Hollow Knight Voidheart Edition, I take it because I don't own that game yet. So my copy that I own of Hollow Knight, I got from Ryan McCaffrey from IGN.
Wow.
So that was a pretty fun thing. So yeah, I've had it for a while. This is my second time playing it because the first time I played it, I got through like the first area and then stopped. This time I got farther than that. So yeah, that's Hollow Knight. Fun story. I've played it, but I never beaten it. What was your part 3 and 6?
No, I was just asking, like, your overall relationship with like Metroidvania games, and like if you had any expectations coming into Hollow Knight based on prior games with the genre, if you had any expectations in that regard.
No, I just heard it was good, so I was like, sounds good to me. And Metroidvanias are, if I just think if a game is good, it doesn't matter the genre. If it's good, I'll play it and try it out. So I like Metroidvanias. I'm not obsessed with them, but everyone's like, Hollow Knight's a good one of those. And I was like, dope, I'm in there. So yeah, I just played it because it's a good video game, and I enjoy Metroidvanias if they're good video games.
Cool. By the way, real quick, thank you to Game Sandwich Official for raiding with a party of 6 just a little bit earlier. Thank you for joining us in the chat. This is going to be, I think, a pretty fun review. We're just sort of getting our wheels off the ground. Let's talk a little bit about
sorry, side note. Shout out to Game Sandwich on breaking the news last week about the Xbox Meta Quest headset. I saw that story and I looked and they're like, according to source from Game Sandwich, I was like, look at y'all, wow. That's awesome. So yeah,
wow,
shout out.
We are graced by the presence of incredible titans of the industry. We are talking about my experience with this game. So as you all know, I have a great level of fondness for Metroidvania games, particularly the Metroid games, both the 2D and 3D ones. And this was very much a game where for a long period of time, I was like, man, I really should get in on the ground floor and experience Hollow Knight. Everyone says it's such a great game. It feels like with every passing year, as people grow more and more impatient for Hollow Knight Silksong, Hollow Knight, the original game's, stature only rises more and more and more. And I should probably finally just sort of pop the cherry on it, so to speak, to borrow a turn of phrase from Adam, who, no, don't try and deny it, Adam. Adam's shaking his head.
Just hearing you say it was gross. That's all it was.
At the beginning of this year, before we even did this particular BARF game review, I wrote it down as I should probably get around to Hollow Knight finally, and so I'm glad that my BARF review gave me an opportunity to finally do so. I will say, I had a little bit of an awkward experience playing through this game, where I first started playing it around the midway point through May, because at the time the expectation was we're going to finish this for the end of the month. Got a little bit sidetracked. Then we made the decision we're going to split this up into 2 months. We'll finish it towards the end of June. I was like, great, we'll do that just fine. Sounds good. Towards the end of June, I was like, oof, I've really been putting off playing this game. I got to get around to it. Dad's saying we should go to the cottage this weekend. I'll hang out in the Eastern Townships. I'll be able to play a little bit of this game on my Switch. Things will be all good, fine, and dandy. So towards the beginning of June, of course, Nintendo Switch 2 launched. When it launched, I did the transfer, where you transfer all of your data from the original Switch to the Switch 2. This doesn't erase any of your data in the Switch 1. You can still use everything that was previously there before you did the transfer. And I've yet to pick up a carrying case for my Switch 2. And so I figured, you know what? I'm going to just take the Switch 1 to the cottage for the weekend and play Hollow Knight on that. Sure, it feels a little old in the tooth, a little creaky compared to the Switch 2, but for a game like Hollow Knight, which is not super intensive and ran just perfectly fine on the Switch 1, it'll be A-okay. Bring it to the cottage, boot it up, and it says, hey, you can't play Hollow Knight because you did not transfer over the digital game key. Because now that the Switch 2 is on the scene, you got to have a digital game key that's like specifically set up with the platform that you want to play the games that you own on. And so I ended up having to come back home from the country without having played it, and I ended up having to rush to complete it within the past few days. Ultimately, I was able to roll credits, no problem. So I can say that I have officially beaten Hollow Knight. Did I complete every single last challenge, objective, collectible in Hollow Knight? Not quite, but we are getting a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Just as a little
Yes.
Button on the end of your game key story, I'll let you know that's not a Switch 2 exclusive experience because I picked back up my Switch OLED just to see how long I played Hollow Knight for the first time, and this was after digital game keys got patched in, but before the Switch 2 released. And I tried to boot up Hollow Knight on my Switch, and it said, "Sorry, you don't have the digital game key for this thing. Please put in the physical game." And I was like, I bought this digitally. I don't have the physical game. What are you talking about? And I went to my game library, and it said, "No, you own this game." And I was like, I know. Let me play it. And then I did it all again, and it said, "Cool, you have the digital game key now." So it's not a Switch 2 exclusive thing. It's just a stupid digital game key. This game had a wrong error message kind of thing.
Oh dear. Oh
Yeah.
boy, oh dear, oh dear. Man, this is an incredibly large and expensive game. And so there are so many angles that we could tackle it from. I want to just say top level. Going into Hollow Knight, there was a part of me that was a little bit concerned of like, people really love this game. They really swear by this game. Am I going to end up loving this game so much that this game will almost sort of invalidate the love that I had for so many other Metroidvania games in the genre? Am I going to come out of it thinking, man, these other games just don't have the sauce in the way that Hollow Knight does? And I'm kind of happy to say that, like, I really loved Hollow Knight. I think it is a fantastic game that really excels in a lot of different ways, but it is particular enough of a Metroidvania game that does certain things really well and makes enough certain specific decisions that I didn't walk away from it being like, well, this invalidates a lot of these other Metroidvania games. I would say that if you put a gun to my head and said, do you prefer this game or do you prefer Metroid Dread? I would say, if given the decision, I would probably go with this game. I think that Hollow Knight is probably a better Metroidvania game than Metroid Dread. I think it might be the best Metroid game of this generation so far, but I also don't think that it invalidates a game like Metroid Dread. I think a game like Metroid Dread still has a lot to kind of offer in its own regard, as do a lot of other games in the genre. Chad, coming back to Hollow Knight after having, been away from it for several years, how did you find this playthrough of Hollow Knight for you?
So I'll start with a couple of stats. When I first played Hollow Knight on Nintendo Switch back in 2019, I played for 18 hours and 33 minutes before beating the game. That was my cleared the game time. And I had beat 54% of the game in that 18 and a half hours. 54%, which is something you can unlock as you beat the game. It gives you the option to, you can now see how long or how much of the game you've actually cleared. At that point, I thought I had pretty much gotten everything that I had wanted to get out of this game, and I thought it was incredible, and I thought it was an amazing game. And when I played the game this time, I beat it at 39 hours, 56 minutes, and 30 seconds with 107% completion. And I said, holy shit, that stupid little idiot me back in 2019 had no idea what the fuck he was thinking. That's what I think makes this game really good, is that you can play it and only do 57% of the things and be completely satisfied and have a really great thing and not feel like you're missing out. But if you feel like you want to dig in, you can spend double that time and 107% complete this thing and like get your mind blown by diving deep into the lore and everything that's going on in this game. And it's so satisfying, no matter how you play it. So I think it's really brilliant, and I'm really glad that I continue to explore and dive in and do all the side quests and all that kind of stuff this route.
Quick question. I did not 107% complete this game. My final percentage was 73% with 33 hours, 54 minutes, and 28 seconds when I rolled credits on this. Is 107% the absolute, like, highest completion rating you can get?
No, the highest completion rating, which is required for the Platinum Trophy, is, I believe, 112%.
112?
Which, the only thing left for me to do is to beat 2 of the 5 Pantheons, and then I have the Platinum Trophy. But the Pantheons are vicious.
That is actually something I'm curious of. Like, are the extra completion points, percentage points, like, tied to the DLCs? Like, is the base version of the game just 100%, or was it higher than even 100% when it first came out?
That I don't know. I can take a wild guess and say yes, it is related to that. The DLCs came out kind of piecemeal over the course of, I think, a year. But the percentage points I looked up, they are tied to badges that you get. Or not, they don't call them badges. What do they call them in this?
Charms.
Charms, yeah. The charms that you get.
Yeah.
The enemies that you unlock in the Hunter's Journal, as well as things like side quests that you've done, items that you've collected, and the Pantheon completions.
Right. While Chad looks that up, Adam, what was your ultimate completion rating? And what are your, like, final thoughts on the game, having finally played through it again after all this time?
I have no idea on completion percentage. I don't look at that. I was not concerned about it.
Damn.
But
the
no,
bad
I mean,
boy of respawning fire here
I just
doesn't care
didn't
about
know that we were looking at
percentages.
completion percentages. By the way, it looks like the DLC is 6, 7, and 12% of the total. Well, actually, that makes sense. It's 12% of the 112. But what did I think about the game? What was the question? I don't remember. What did you say?
Like, now that you finally come back to the game and seen it through to the end, what did you think?
I don't know. It's a great game. Like, the fervor for Silksong is just a meme at this point. It's like a game that people are just doing, are so excited for it just because it's the thing to do. But no, I mean, like, if we're just looking at based on what this team has done before, it's like, yeah, absolutely. This game is excellent. It's phenomenal. It feels great. Exploration is fun. Combat's fun. World's beautiful. Like, it does all the things that a game, like a good game does, and it does it excellently. So I can see why everyone is just sopping wet for the DLC. And I'm ready for that as well. I'm excited to play. Whenever I was playing the game and Silksong showed up, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to play as her in the next game. Chad, I know that's not her name. It's a joke. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just like whenever you play something that's really good, and you're just like, yeah, no notes. Good job. You did a good video game. Congratulations. And then it's just like, what is the wait? Are we 6 months away? Are we 5 months away? You know? It's got to be soon.
We'll see. At this point, like, if anyone wants to just chime in, and now that we've kind of gotten the pleasantries out of the way, anyone wants to chime in and just talk about specific things that they really liked in this game, we can all kind of just jump in there where we need to see fit, where we need to. Man, my brain is just firing a million neurons right now.
I'll jump in. I'll save you, Cozy. Yes, I want to say how cool it is that the story can be satisfying with varying levels of knowing it and understanding it. Like, you could play the game without having ever gone to the Abyss and without having ever gotten, you know, the King's Brand that lets you in there, and then the Void Heart and all of that kind of stuff. You can play the game kind of assuming dark is bad, light is good. We are killing these dreamers, letting them finally rest so that we can, you know, root out this infection that's within this black egg, and then finally save the town. And like, that's the understanding that you have, and you get to the end and you're like, cool, I did a good thing, I did a good job. And then that's completely satisfying in its own. But you can read more things, you can complete these side quests, you can get the Void Heart, and you can understand that, like, oh, the light is actually this vengeful god that is this radiance that is just like, you know what? All of you stopped worshiping me whenever technology came around, and you finally had public transit, and you had like healthcare and homes, and everything was great, and you forgot about me, your god. Well, I'm gonna fucking infect everyone now, and I'm gonna ruin your. And it turns out, oh, actually, these dreamers are what's keeping all of that sealed, and the Hollow Knight is keeping all. So like, and the void is what actually is creating opportunity and all of these great things for people. So you could. I think what's brilliant about it is that, like I mentioned with the Switch and the PS4, PS5 version playthroughs that I did, like you could play it multiple ways, and you could be satisfied both ways with what you got, and thinking this is a really great story. And what I'm really curious to see is that there are 5 ways this game can end. There are 5 endings to it. And Team Cherry has said there is no canon ending. Whatever you chose is the canon ending, and we will find a way to honor that in Silksong. Which is wild to me, because there are endings where Hollow Knight becomes the new, or the main knight becomes the Hollow Knight. There are endings where Hollow Knight, or the main knight dies, and not Silk, fuck you, Adam. Now you got that in my brain. And now Hornet is kind of taking over. Then there's ones where you get rid of the Radiance and you survive as the Knight. And then there's ones where you talk to the God Seeker and maybe the God Seekers. There's all sorts of fucking wild ways that this could go. I have no idea how they're going to honor that in the second one.
I have an idea, Chad. We start the game, and Hornet's like, or we're going to call her Silk Song. Man, 2 years ago, what a crazy trip. Now I'm over here doing this. That's exactly how they're going to do that. But also, also to that point, though, because a lot of what you're saying is like an Elden Ring thing, where it's like, oh man, George R. R. Martin did this and da-da-da-da. And I loved Elden Ring. It was Game of the year it came out. Don't give a fuck about the story, because this, like, the gameplay is good and it's fun to play the game and explore the world. And it's like, I don't give a fuck about what the Elden Ring is and what family member is fucking this guy and this, and just like in this one, it's like, oh, the god bug is like, I don't give a shit. I want to go stab that fucker in the back. It's great. So I like that it's there if you want it, but it's really, you can have an obtuse story, but you really, really, really need to nail the game being fun for people who don't want to dig on it, and the people who want to dig on it are rewarded for putting that time in. So, that's how you make a good game with a quote-unquote weird bad story, by just being like, well, the game's good, and if you want to fuck around, you can come and find out.
100%. Adam, you mentioned ER. Not ER as an emergency room, the television series created by Michael Crichton. I'm, of course, talking about Elden Ring, the Souls-like game. This game has obviously a lot of Souls-like influences. It wears it very kind of proudly on its chest. And the thing that I really appreciated about this game is, like, we've gotten so many games over the past decade that have had Souls-like elements to them. And this is like one of the few games where it's like, oh, like, more than just featuring a lot of Souls-like elements, you really understood, like, what makes the Souls-like games really kind of tick. I feel like so many people use, like, oh, it's the Dark Souls of blah, blah, blah. It's like a pejorative. But, like, this is a game that really earns the title of being kind of considered alongside the other main Souls-like games in terms of, again, a lot of what we've talked about of it being a game that you can appreciate on multiple levels. If you don't want to appreciate the story, it's still a beautiful, fantastic experience. If you do want to appreciate and indulge in the story, there is a chunky amount of lore in there for you to appreciate. But also just, obviously, the designs of the bosses, not just the visual designs, because frequently they're also very well designed from a visual standpoint, but just the design of the boss battles themselves frequently being just incredibly entertaining, them really striking that really good balance of both, like, you can spend a lot of time exploring the world and getting a lot of upgrades that will tip the scales a little bit more in your favor whenever you go into any of its boss fights, but you still need to be on your toes and still need to take the time to download their kits if you want to overcome the many challenges that this game throws at you. Things like just the kind of like non-linear structure of the game, the sort of like overall like despairing atmosphere that kind of permeates everything that you kind of see around you. Just like I think incredibly special sense of like walking into a world and being, what the fuck happened here? Like, how did things come to be the way they are? And the Hollow Knight wiki, bless the Hollow Knight wiki, has like a lot of answers, but there are a lot of other elements of the game where it feels like the game is content to kind of just let you kind of wonder to yourself what you think happened. And I think that that's incredibly special, kind of letting your imagination as the player run wild. I think the game is really fantastic in that regard.
Yeah, shout out to Mass Keaton in the chat saying, as far as things I enjoyed, going to give a shout out to the voice noises. Those little clips gave the characters a lot of personality. There was maybe a solid 6 months on this show that Holden, just out of nowhere, for no reason, was just going, Bumpanada. And I got to this was like after he'd played the game, but before I had, so I didn't have an appreciation. It wasn't cute to me, and it's just like, shut the fuck up. Stop saying Papanada all the time. But now I was like, oh, this little shopkeeper lady, Papanada. I think my second favorite one was there's this, the woman who, I can't remember her name, but she's off, like down in the little thing, she gives you things if you like collect a certain amount of charms. If you collect all 40 charms, then she gives you this one charm that anytime you sit at a bench, she'll restore all of your energy.
Ooh.
And when you're sitting there and she's doing it, I didn't realize this is how it worked, but until I like paused it, or sat at a bench to go check my phone or something. Sat at the bench, waited about 2 or 3 seconds, and then you just hear, ooh, and you just see her ghost flying above you, giving you energy, and she'll just sit there and giggle until you get off the bench. And so, yeah, if you get up and go pee or something like that, you're just going to hear her giggling in the background going, it's fucking awesome.
Real quick, going back to Buffanada, I have a little section in my notes here titled Favorite Bugs. Really love Cornifer and Izelda, them being the guy that draws the maps and his wife who sells you the other map-related equipment. It's a trope we've seen before, but I love the trope of like the squat, nerdy boyfriend and his super tall girlfriend who's just so sick of this shit that he's like, well, I might as well just hang around and help him anyways. I love that this game, which is otherwise so incredibly dark and dismal, had those characters hanging around. Any other bugs that immediately stick out to you? I also really like the Dung Master or the Dung Warrior. Whatever his name was.
Okay. Yeah.
Which apparently there's like a whole bunch of side quests involving that character after you beat him that I didn't even get to experience, which is really cool. Any bugs?
On Cornifer, too, I think part of this is like great bug noises, and then part of it is also like great sound design in the game. I loved being in a brand new place, having no idea where the fuck I'm going, and the map's not filled in or anything like that, and then you just hear and you're just like, oh, thank God. And that's just like one of the many things. There's like Cornifer, jolly, great. I love to run into you in the world, but also this game did so many little things like that to help guide you through. It came to the same thing with enemy animations when they're fighting you, like making the little tiny noises that you kind of know what type of attack is coming next and how to parry it or whatever it might be that you're doing, just based on sound, was so good.
I really loved Cornifer's little mumbling sounds as well. That was definitely a learning process for me, though, where early on I was like, man, I really could use a map. I don't know why the game isn't providing me with any maps. And I realized, wait a minute, I'm listening to podcasts, to music, to other things while I game all the time. And that's preventing me from more accurately figuring out where Cornifer is hiding out and getting access to his maps. And so I had to learn from there on out that I gotta really pay attention to what this game is trying to tell me audio wise. Adam, are there any bugs that stick out in your mind? Any bugs where you're like, ooh, this bug's the cock of the walk, they say.
Who's that little fucker? Who's that little fucker who loses all the kids and's like, thank God you brought my children back. They were all gonna die.
Yeah, Grub Father.
Old Grub Daddy. Yeah, he's pretty cool. And I do like the map dude's wife who's like, I'm gonna leave him in like a month. I'm just waiting for him to get his shit together. She's leaving him. She does not want to be with that man.
You don't know that. They're in a loving relationship.
I wouldn't say so.
Did you all ever get to the point where you fought the sword masters to get the like super skills with the nail?
The guys where like you pay them some geo and then they give you skills. Those guys?
Yeah. So one of them is a painter. The other two of them are like actually sword fighting brothers. And then you find out after you getting to the third Pantheon, the final boss of the third Pantheon is Sly, which is the shopkeeper that you bring back up, the little bug. But I really liked the brother swordmaster that was the painter. One, because it's like, oh, that's like interesting that Like, while sword arts are their own type of thing, you're like actually into like painting and art, and that's, you feel a little bit like ostracized because of it. But then the fight that you do with him later, and he's using paint and different colors to telegraph his attacks and things like that, is really, really freaking cool too. So he was one of my favorite bugs.
I will say, really love this game overall. If I did have one complaint with this game, one point of critique, I can already hear the Hollow Knight fans mobilizing to find my house in Canada and beat me up for even proclaiming there could be something wrong with this game. But one thing that I found kind of frustrating was the process of recovering and then spending your geo when you die. This game does the thing that a lot of Souls-like games do, where you collect your currency, and then when you die, you have to return to your bloodstain. It's not a bloodstain in this game. It's like a wisp, or like a...
It's your void.
Yeah, exactly. The void, the spirit of your being, and you have to go and defeat it, and then you can recover your geo. Like, most of the time, I don't particularly mind this in most other Souls-like games, because usually you can just go back to the last rest point, the last bonfire, the last whatever, and then in a pinch, you can spend all of your currency on upgrading your character. But in this game, like, because the only things you can spend geo on are a bunch of vendors, and because those vendors usually are all in like far off corners of the game's map, there were many moments where I would like die in like a really like far off and like kind of unfortunate spot of the game's world, and I'd be like, man, if I go all the way to retrieve my corpse and then I travel all the way back so I can cash in my geo at a vendor, like that is going to be an incredibly long and hazardous trek. I'm just going to leave my Phantom where it is, and I'll just gradually kind of accumulate the geo that I lost. That was like an issue that definitely was a lot more brutal early on, before you unlock a lot of fast travel opportunities and you gain access to a lot of maps. But even later on, it was kind of a frustrating process. And what was sort of further annoying is the fact that the game has a bank. The game has a bank where you can go and store geo, but it's like kind of in a little bit of a weird, awkward spot. And so I never really used the bank. If the bank was something that was like freely available at rest points, if it let me just deposit geo whenever I sit down at any of those benches, I probably would have used it more. But because I always had to travel to this weird ass corner of the map, I was like, well, I'm not going to use this. And it was another thing that was also annoying.
Wait.
Yes.
You didn't use it. You didn't. Adam, did you use the bank?
No.
Oh man, y'all missed a great thing.
I remember there being a thing that happens with the bank. I was like, I don't even want to deal with that. No, thank you.
Yeah, if you put, I can't remember the number. Maybe it's like 2,000 geo into the bank. The next time you come back, she's gone with all your money. She takes all your money.
Oh no!
And then later in the game, you find her just hanging out in a hot springs up in this tower, and you're like, "Bitch, you're the bitch who stole my money!" And she just sits there in the hot springs. She's like, "Oh," and you just continually hit her over and over, and she just rains geo, and you get 1.5 times the geo that you lost back. So if it was 2,000, you get 3,000. I can't. That was such like a fuck you moment that I was like, I can't believe that bitch just up and left with my money.
Go ahead.
There is. I didn't learn this until probably cumulatively 60 hours of playing this game. Actually, I didn't play that long total. 50 hours of playing this game. That there is a way to get your geo and your soul back. Like, there is a mechanic in the game that they just don't tell you.
Oh.
Did you ever go, when you're in Dirtmouth, did you ever go all the way to the right and unlock that door that required a small key?
Oh, there's like some woman there that's like, oh, if you've been cursed or something like that.
Yeah, she's like, oh, let me see. Oh, you don't have any regrets. I can't do anything for you. Regrets was her little code way of saying, oh, your dead body's out there somewhere. So if you go to her with the rotten egg, you give her a rotten egg, and she warps your geo and your body there.
I got so many rotten eggs, and I never knew what to use them for. I'm like, certainly there's some vendor around here, but
that's what it was for me. Like 50 hours in total of playing this game, I was finding just like, what the fuck are these eggs for? So I googled it, and they're like, oh, you can give her this later. I was like, oh, that was the thing I could have done this whole time.
I like that solution. Like, if I had known that I could do that, I probably would have used that and I suspect that this issue I experienced probably wouldn't have been as much of an issue. But that is something where, like, I feel like maybe you got to communicate that a little bit better. I understand that the game wants to intentionally be obtuse and that the developers do want there to be this collaborative spirit of people like helping each other out online, showing other younger, more inexperienced players the way. But I feel like the game itself could have been just nudged a little bit more and been like, hey, if you're experiencing this problem, maybe speak to this character over here. Anyways.
There is a solution to that problem, Cozy. They do the similar thing in Souls games as well. It's GIT space GUD, I believe is what the kids call it. So you just gotta do that, and then you'll figure it out. I mean, yeah, this is a game that I 100% Googled, like, just tips to know starting Hollow Knight or whatever it was, just to like. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. I mean, this game has some weird stuff in it. Like, what's the basic shit I can get out the way? They're like, get the map, do this. If you die, rotten eggs, they're right here, do the thing. So I'm like, okay, there's like 6 tips that make it a lot quicker and easier. But again, that's just how these games are made, to not tell you that shit. You got to figure it out or go on Reddit. So that's how it is.
Only other thing I'll say about this game, and this is not less so a criticism, but more so kind of propping up what I was saying at the beginning about how this doesn't invalidate my love for other kind of Metroidvania games in the genre. When I got to the final boss and beat his ass and got the not so great ending that I got, I was like, okay, cool. I think I'm going to stop here, but I am just purely curious. Like, what do I got to do if I want to get the full proper ending to this game? And like reading the steps that I need to go through to get the proper ending was like, I was legitimately losing my mind at how much of a Rube Goldberg-esque, like, this machine, like madness pile of nonsense it was. It's like, all right, well, first you need the Void Heart Charm. All right, to get the Void Heart Charm, you go to a specific location at the end of the map to get another charm. To get the other charm, you first need to collect 2 pieces of fragments from these 2 other characters. To get one of the 2 fragments, you need to get to the end of a location you've never been to called the White Palace. To get access to the White Palace, you first need to defeat a beast called the King's Mouth. To get access to the King's Mouth, you have to... I love. I have nothing but love for this game being so, like, incredibly overloaded with so much seemingly excellent content that fans of this game, like you, Chad, really, really love. But I did get to the end and I was like, I can't help but appreciate a game like Metroid Dread, like being in and out in a much quicker amount of time and only requiring me to, again, like, get 100% of collectibles and boom, you've gotten 100% of everything this game has to offer. You don't need to do all that much else. I think that this game, for people that are coming into this game that want a 20-course meal, this game more than delivers. It 112% delivers. But I do think that coming off of this game, like, there is room for this kind of game, and then there is room for your shorter 8 to 9 hour Metroidvania experiences. And I think that both can coexist. And, you know, I'm happy that at the end of this game, I'm not thinking to myself, man, I wish that all games were exactly like this. I'm happy that we got both.
I think that's, again, going back to my initial thoughts, like, I think that's what I love so much about this game, is that you can play it for 10 to 15 hours or something like that, and you can get an ending that is satisfying to you and that feels complete. Or you can go off on the way to the right of the map and do all of this stuff and get the King's Badge and go to the Abyss and Void Heart and all that kind of stuff, and you can get a very different ending that is satisfying in a completely different way. I think that was really well done. If we're talking about complaints, my biggest complaint is that there were several times, and I don't think I've ever played a Metroidvania where this hasn't been the case. There were several times when I was just like, okay, I don't know what to do next. I don't know where to go. I think I've explored everything that I could possibly explore, but I'm clearly missing something. And it's because it's non-linear, it's not like you can go to a walkthrough and say, cool, let me find where I am in this walkthrough and find out what to do next. It's like, no, somebody could have done, I could be 35 pages into that walkthrough. I could be 5 into it. And so it was really difficult to... Because on the map, there's no, like, indicator of, like, you can't go past here because there's a shadow gate. You can't go past here because you can't jump high enough yet. Like, there's no way to mark that kind of stuff. I know they give you markers, but not enough of them to actually make them specific enough like that.
That is one of those things where, like, I didn't love Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown as much as some other people did, but Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown did introduce that mechanic where you can take screenshots of areas around the map, which makes it really convenient to kind of determine, oh, that's the specific issue that was blocking my progress over there. Now I just need to get whatever item will allow me to progress past that, and I don't need to go through the process of going there, being like, oh no, I don't actually have the correct thing. I can just immediately know off the drop of the hat whether or not I can finally get past that checkpoint.
Yeah. And then my second gripe is, once you get late game enough that you've opened up 99% of the map, and the rest of the game is just completing quests that might unlock different parts of what you've already been to. Like, for instance, I think about the Grim Troop and the vampires. Like, there's a part of that quest that's like, cool, go to these 3 areas on the map, and you're going to find a little vampire boy that's going to go along with you, and he's going to fly behind you, and you need to suck the soul out of 3 of these little things. And you're like, cool, I've been to all those parts of the map. The things that I need to go to are nowhere near a tram station, and it's just like, traveling gets old. It's like, I know how to get there. I've been there 12 times, but I know that it's going to take me 5 minutes to backtrack through this thing, and it's not difficult to do it, but it's just it's monotonous and repetitive. So I do wish that there were better, easier ways to get around the map once you are in the late game for those specific types of situations.
There is, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a late game item that you can get that allows you to, like, directly teleport to a location that you set.
Yeah,
is
so
that right?
That's the Dream Nail, an upgrade for the Dream Nail. And
Got
so
it.
you set a portal point, like, this is where I want to come back to, and then anywhere you are on the map, you can press and hold a button, and it goes back to that point. So I set that as actually Dirtmouth for most of the game, so that from wherever I was on the map, I could instantly warp back to Dirtmouth and spend my money, go to a trolley, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. There definitely were many times playing through the game where I was like, I wish it was just a little bit easier, a little bit faster to kind of get around the map, especially now that I've mastered everything and I have all these other abilities that should, in theory, make the process of getting around here a cinch, but it's not quite. Adam, you had the thoughts, opinions, critiques, comments of a certain individual who wrote into the podcast. Do you want to share them?
I do. If you ever want to write into the show for BARF review or anything else, it's respawningfire@gmail.com or Adam's DMs on Discord. Either one of those works just fine. This is from Mass Keaton, who was in the chat earlier. Mass Keaton wrote a novel, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm going to read it verbatim. Hollow Knight thoughts. This is from Mass Keaton. I have some mixed feelings on the game. Let's get the bad out of the way first. I'm not a fan of the grimdark style of hiding all the lore everywhere and telling me nothing about what's going on. Yes, hide cool lore bits, but I played this entire game without knowing what was going on or why I was doing anything other than it's a game and I was gifted it from a nephew who really wants me to play it. When it was over, I saw the ending and went, that was weird, and then I threw up. Not because of the ending, but because I had a really bad stomach bug at the time. Oh, and that wasn't even the true ending. Anyways, I hear that if you're wise enough to pull the lore together, it's an amazing story. With that out of the way, let's talk about the awesome. This is a non-linear Metroid-style game, which is pretty impressive. Usually these games are pretty railroaded, so having one that let me have branching paths was really cool. The characters are great. I adored the last stag and got a little choked up when he found somewhere he had lost, but all the characters have personality and great voice clips. The exploration for this game is off the charts. So many nooks, crannies, and little things to find, and hidden bosses. Music is fantastic. The setting is haunting in a good way, and the combat is very well done. This game gets a recommend from me. Just remember that the story is a jigsaw puzzle of random pieces. Thanks for letting me share my thoughts on your podcast. Thank you, Keaton, for writing in to my DMs. That was not a Gmail one. That was straight to my DMs. I appreciate it. Thank you, Keaton.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even necessarily disagree with his point about, this game being, a jigsaw puzzle of a bunch of different random scattered about narrative points. Like, there certainly were some points when I was playing through the game where I was like, I do wish that perhaps the story could communicate to me in a little bit more of a clear-cut fashion exactly what is going on and why it is that I'm doing what it is that I'm doing. But I was still never not compelled to kind of keep moving forward. And that is one of those things where, like, I love the Metroid games very dearly. Their stories are usually simple. I wouldn't say to a fault, but there have been many points in the past where I've been like, man, I do wish that the Metroid games would give me just a little bit more, that they were hiding a little bit more beneath the kind of subterfuge of exactly what's going on, that they also had, these extra kind of background, entire histories to these sort of characters that games like these are sort of so rich inside of. And that is definitely something where I'm like, I do hope that whatever they do next with the 2D Metroid genre incorporates a lot of what we've seen in games like this.
I just thought of one more thing I want to bitch about real quick, and one more thing that I just want to praise the world for.
Yes, go for it.
My last little bitch. If you end up going for the Void Heart, and you have to get the 2 pieces of the key that gets you the Void Heart, one of the things you have to do is go to the Pale Knight's White Palace, and that whole palace, the game suddenly goes from an exploratory Metroidvania, some platforming and some difficult combat, to suddenly being the most pixel perfect brutal platforming game, like the hardest parts you can think of Celeste. That's what this tower ended up being, with buzzsaws and things. It was to the point where I almost was like, cool, I think I might just be done here. I almost gave up in this tower. It completely threw me off guard, and it was so be prepared for that if you are pursuing that. But then the thing that I loved, I just remembered, because the screen came up earlier, I loved that I lied to you when I beat this game the first time. I told you it was 39 hours, but I lied to you, because my original time was 36 hours and 48 minutes at 104%. But I had done that without getting the actual without fighting the Radiance. I had just gotten the Void Heart. Hornet was there in the final battle to help me. And Hornet, when you do that, Hornet comes in the middle of the battle and randomly sticks the Hollow Knight in the brain, holds him still for a second. And then she's there for maybe 5 seconds, holding him still. And you can hit him, great, awesome. After about 5 seconds, he throws her to the ground. She never gets back up. And while she was holding him, I noticed there were those little tiny dream symbols coming out of him, just like everything else you can hit with a dream nail. But I wasn't fast enough to actually hit it with the dream nail. Mm-hmm. And so we threw her to the ground. I finished that battle as is, got the ending that I got, and then I was like, I think I might go back and try that again, but with the dream nail, and see if I can get that at the right moment. And when I did that, I didn't know this existed. I didn't even know that was a thing you could do. I just had an inkling that maybe I'm gonna try to hit him with a dream nail again. Went back, boom, transported in this world, and it's this bright, beautiful area, and this huge beast comes out of the fucking nothingness, and the screen goes full white with black text that just says The Radiance. And I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. My jaw dropped and I was like, holy fuck, that was such a cool moment. And then this boss absolutely creams you and makes you want to kill yourself. And but then so I spent another 2 hours and 15 minutes. Was it? Something like that. Yeah, 2 hours and 15 minutes-ish. Trying to beat the Radiance until I finally did beat it at the 39-hour mark and 107% completion. So that was just such a cool moment that I discovered organically just by reading the cues of the game, and didn't even realize there was a whole extra secret final ultimate boss that existed. It's so cool.
Yeah, really, really, really cool. Real quick, before we wrap up tonight's episode, obviously Team Cherry has a little game coming out, hopefully soon, fingers crossed, called Hollow Knight Silksong, which is a sequel, although I don't know if this game necessarily takes place after the events of the original Hollow Knight.
It does.
Regardless, it does. Okay.
Yes.
So we know that for a fact. So probably can't come after the one ending where, what's her name? Hornet. The ending where Hornet gets sealed off with you. So maybe that ending isn't perfectly canon. Or maybe not.
Who knows? They're all gonna be respected
it's
somehow.
2 years later. It's in a new city, in a new state. She's living her best life. Everything that's in the past.
Yeah, Chad, I'd imagine you're probably going to play Hollow Knight Silksong when it releases.
100%. Yep.
Adam, are you going to play Hollow Knight Silksong?
Absolutely.
It's coming to Game Pass and Xbox Asus ROG Ally X, Xbox Series X.
I think this is going to be one of those cases where we'll really see like kind of how my gaming schedule looks like when this game finally comes out. I really liked Hollow Knight 1. I'm definitely going to play Hollow Knight Silksong after when it finally releases, hopefully later this year. It is one of those things where I am kind of Hollow Knighted out right now, having spent so much time in this one particular game, and so I need to let that kind of die off again so I can come into Hollow Knight Silksong with kind of my best spirits. But yeah, definitely a game that I've earmarked as I'm probably going to want to for sure play this one when it finally releases. Whew. And with that, we have arrived at the end of tonight's BARF review. As was said at the top of the show, remember, as always, that you can catch regular episodes of the Respawn Aim Fire podcast live on twitch.tv/AffableIdiots every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as on YouTube and podcast services the following Wednesday. And of course, you can look forward to this episode going up on YouTube and podcasting services soon as well. But that is not all. Now that Hollow Knight is out of the way, we're ready to jump back into our next BARF game. We decided that given that we've just arrived at the halfway mark of 2025, it would be good to finally catch up on a big game that was released in the first half of this year. Your 4 choices for what that big game will be are Blueprints, South of Midnight, Doom: The Dark Ages, and Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. Because some of those games are a little bit on the longer side, we decided to once again do a double-double and extend our BARF playthrough of whatever wins until the end of August. Would you look at that? If you go to patreon.com/respawningfire, I literally just went live with the poll just right now, just as we were doing this particular podcast. So you can go and vote on it. Tout suite right now, tout suite being French for right now, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Maybe vote for that one, but I'm not saying which one you should vote for. You should vote for whatever your heart says you should vote for. So yeah, patreon.com/respawningfire. Supporting us for just $1 will allow you to cast your vote on whichever big game you want us to play over these next 2 months. Chad, Adam, thank you again so much for being such wonderful co-hosts alongside me. And thank you, our dear viewers, listeners, once again for tuning into Respawning Fire. Thank you to Mass Keaton for writing in with your thoughts on this game. Really, truly appreciated. We will see you next time.